Welcome to Nightmares Before Bed, a supernatural podcast where each show will explore dark and mysterious places, eerie creatures, and all things spooky and creepy. And speaking of spooky and creepy, please help me welcome your hosts Jonathan Rosen and Troy Cannon.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Nightmares Before Bed. I'm Jonathan Rosen along with Troy Cannon, and today we have one that's been fascinating to me for a long time. It's been in movies, it's been in books, and it's been a lot of things, popular culture. And it's your selection, so I'm going to let you introduce it. But this was a fascinating one. I'm not sure it's spooky, but let you introduce it. Go ahead.
This one is the Crystal Skulls, and this one has had me curious since I was little. There was a TV show. It's old and gone now, but there was a TV show. Some of our viewers may know, and if they know, then they are revealing their age. But it was called In Search Of.
I love that show. I did love that show.
That was a great show, and had Leonard Nimoy.
Yes, that was a good show.
So Leonard Nimoy talked about the Crystal Skulls, and it spooked me because I was saying to myself, well, there's got to be aliens. Where else could this have come from? It's got to be aliens.
I remember alien episodes on that.
Yeah, they did the Crystal Skulls. They did the thing in Florida about the Coral Castle.
Oh, yes.
He did a few of them that were pretty good, but that one, I won't say, like you said, it didn't really spook me. It didn't have me wanting. Well, I saw it when I was in Jersey, when I was still a little kid in Jersey, and there was a hallway from my bedroom to my grandmother's bedroom, and my grandmother was where I would go to hide whenever I heard something spooky. So she was the oldest person in the house. I was like, nobody's going to mess with her. She's old. She's the authority. But this made me a little nervous to walk down that hallway because the aliens were supposed to be small and gray, so they were about my height. And I was like, nah, if they were big, I could maybe sneak past them, but they're looking me in the face. So the thing with the Crystal Skulls, there's two ways to think about the Crystal Skulls.
You'd rather have big aliens than small aliens?
Well, I thought, when I was little, I figured the big aliens or the big monsters were standing up, and they
you
were
could look right by their
knees. Yeah, and I could sneak by them because I was little. But something like a little gray, you can't sneak by him because he's little too. He's looking me in the face. And according to the thing, they kidnap people, so there would be 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So that was a fight I didn't want to have. So they with the Crystal Skulls, it really gets started with Anne Mitchell Hedge. She's a young woman whose parents die, and she gets adopted at a real young age by one of her neighbors. And this benefactor becomes essentially her father. He adopts her, he's her father. And the good and the bad about the story is the father who adopts her was traveling the world essentially looking for fame. He was looking for something that he could stamp his name on and say, I did that. So he was looking for discovering lost cities. He was looking to write books about, he wrote a book about catching a fish. And in the book, it was, I think, a 75-pound fish. But when he tells his friends the story, it's a 100-pound fish. And then later he told other people, and it's a 200-pound fish, and it pulled him halfway into the water. So he was a person that had the ability to take a tale and make it tall. So he was a tall tale teller. And he raised her. She lived in a house with this person who was essentially a professional liar. They go out, well, he would go out all the time and try to find adventures.
Okay.
He took her with him one time on an adventure, and supposedly the story is she was bored. They had a bunch of local people helping them. I don't want to call them the natives. He had a bunch of local people helping them, and they were, I think they were looking for Mayan treasure or a lost Mayan city. And she's bored. So he tells her, well, go out and have your own little adventure. Don't go too far. And she's like, okay. So she wanders and she sees something shining in a cave. So she's like, wonder what that is. I think I'll check it out after I go get a couple of these guys to come with me. And she comes back, she checks it out, and she finds a crystal skull.
Right.
Perfectly polished and shined. Later, it turns out that if you had done it with the technology they had available at the time, the local technology, it would have taken 2 or 3 generations, not years. But you would have had to have passed that stone down to your kids and their kids, and they would have had to have keep polishing it. So it would have taken a great deal of time and a great deal of technique. They would have had to teach someone to do this. Also, maybe in 1930s, 1940s, they came up with a technology that they could drill and polish the skulls, and with their modern technology. That would have been the 1930s, 1940s. Unfortunately, this skull was found in 1926. So it was found fully created, possibly 10 or 15 years before the technology existed. And it would have had to have been done by hand at least 100 years before that. So there's a story that you can't really believe it because one of the people who found it was known for lying about things, and the technology existed around the same time to make it, but it was maybe 10 or 15 years before the technology existed. So that makes me think it was made before the technology existed. But that's the origin of the first skull.
Oh, yeah, but there are many that, what I've read on this is too, and it's always associated for some reason with supernatural, or it's associated with aliens. Always the crystal skull. And these are coming from, like, people speculate that they could have been done by human hand. In where was it? In Germany, it was originally crafted. They were saying, I think that it too. But I don't know why it went from these things, and we saw, the Indiana, the not so great Indiana Jones movie with the crystal skulls. So, which was still better than the last one. But so, why is it always associated with aliens and supernatural? That's the thing here, and there are many of them made throughout the world today. But what is it? It's the original. The 13. There are 13 that are associated with supernatural elements. Correct?
There's supposed to be a total of 13. Currently, there are 10 or 12 that have been found.
Okay.
The story is when the 13th, the final skull, is found, it will, sort of like the movie, it will ignite and bring the other ones to life. The skulls are not 100% human proportion. Some of them are considerably larger. Some of them are considerably smaller. The story with that is that these are representation of other bipedal creatures that live throughout the universe, and the skull represents the soul knowledge of each race. So if you get them together, you'll have, say, I don't know the names of the races, but say it would be the Anunnaki and the Klingons and the Kree. You have the combined knowledge of all of them. Once you get that 13th skull, it'll bring the other ones to life. Now, the two sides of that is it's mystical. This is going to happen because it's magical. The other side of that is these are advanced crystals or advanced computers, and we just don't understand them because we're cavemen, walking through the hull of a tank. We don't really know what it is we're doing. So the fact that it could be mystical or possibly a computer is almost beside the point. The people who believe in the skulls are united in the fact that once that final skull is found, like the movie, they finally got that 13th skull, and all of the skulls came, and Indiana Jones was given all of the knowledge, and he knew everything, but whoever gets that 13th skull, because it has to exist somewhere according to the lore. Once it's united with these other skulls.
How do we know that there are 13?
The Mayans, the people that were in the cave, supposedly, according to Anna Hodge, the people that were in the cave saw it, and they were like, it's the skull. And then they started conveying to her this knowledge. So she told the father, and the father, one of his adventures was to find the other skulls. He himself found 3, but later it was, and again, he's supposed to be a storyteller. Mm-hmm. Later it was found out that 2 of the skulls that were given to him, the guy said he originally got the skulls from Hodge.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I gave him the skulls. I had them. I was going to give them to the Smithsonian, but I gave them to Hodge. And they're like, where'd you get them from? He's like, well, I got them from Hodge. And they're like, so he gave them to you to give to him, to make it a big thing. He's a liar. But then Anne was like, no, my father on all of his adventures owed this guy money. And he gave him the skulls as, hold these until I can get the money. When he got the money, he got them back. So he did give them to him, but not as a, let me scam these people. He gave it to him because he owed him something, and then he eventually got them back. So there's a lot of holes in her story. She eventually started traveling the country when she was down on her luck and presenting the skulls on different TV shows and, different stuff like that to use to earn money. And it could just be that, she had these things and she just wanted to earn some money. Or it could be that she was very much like her father and she was into the tall tales also. So I personally, I think there's something to it, Now,
but there are some people who speculate that I saw one of them. I saw in the British Museum. I went to the British Museum, and so I saw it there. And it's, I've been fascinated in this for a long time. And I went before the Indiana Jones movie and all that stuff. Because I remember that. I remember as a kid seeing like all these episodes. I remember I watched In Search of regularly. The Bermuda Triangle, all that stuff In Search of. So, which we should do a Bermuda Triangle thing one day. But there's people who speculate it's fake. But that's one of the things we just talked about before. Every single time you read about this, it's always associated with supernatural things. It's always associated with aliens. It's like one of the two. And so I don't understand, things found in a cave, why we're automatically assuming that it's associated with aliens. But it is. Everyone thinks that it has some alien technology or alien, that, it was done or some alien connotation that, like you said, that once we get it all together, something is going to happen. So it's, and there have been so many people that listed as fakes, but then there are other people who swear by it there too. So I don't know what the clues are that they're saying that it's out there somewhere. What do the clues speculate where it might be found?
According to Hodge, Anne Hodge, she says that she got she found the skulls in a Mayan cave.
Right.
The Mayans that worked there told her that the sky people had brought that down. When it can't be carbon tested because it's pure crystal, there's no carbon, but they took a piece of it and they dated it by how long it would take to make the teeth. I don't know how accurate that is, but they checked the teeth and how long it would take to use sand tools and carve them. That's where they came up with the several generations. They said that it would have probably started before the Mayans and before the Mesopotamian. So that's a long time ago. That's generation upon generation. That's a long time ago.
Right.
So if it was in fact not created by modern technology, and they did the test where they're looking for the scratches or the carving from modern technology. When you buff it with the modern technology, it leaves microscopic, scars that go one way. When you're rubbing it with by hand, they said that they would use like maybe a piece of cloth and some sand, or maybe their hand, some water and some sand, and they would just rub it forever. I don't even know why you would start that thing looking at a great big rock and say, I'm going to make a face out of this. It's probably going to take 300 years, but I don't have anything to do. There's nothing that's easy. So they would start rubbing these things. I don't even know why they would start, but they said that it would have been before the Mesopotamian era. Now, the Mayans, supposedly, that spoke to Hodge, said, yeah, it would probably take a long time, man, but we didn't make that. It came from the sky people. They brought it to us. They made them. So they're saying that aliens brought them here, conveyed certain information to them. There are 2 of them in the Smithsonian in Mexico. There's a famous one, Phyllis Newman. Phyllis Newman brought out. She's like, hey, I got one of them skulls. So they're popping up in different places. The Navajo, the indigenous people here, the Navajo, are aware of them, and they say that the Star Children brought them one of the skulls. So they're saying they were aliens also. I gotta think there's aliens. I don't know if there's aliens in government. Look, I know that there's aliens.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't think you cannot, I know people don't, but I don't think how you can logically think that they're not aliens. It's the world is, not the world, the universe, and, beyond the universe is way too big to try to think that we're the only ones. You have stories and going back to the Mayans, you have stories, first of all, of people from the sky, passed down through generations. And going back, remember, isn't it the Mayan temple that on the pyramids that have like these depictions of what would look like to modern day people as like astronauts, like coming like with the helmets on? So that to me starts giving credence to something. It's something there. And if these, and I don't always necessarily read that the crystal skulls are associated with the Mayans. I've read many different things, but if they are, and that's why, Mayans have always been associated to me with aliens. I've read so many things on aliens with the Mayans. So to me, I agree with you that there's something there. I don't necessarily know if the crystal skulls, but there's something fascinating that when we see all these depictions on their pyramids, and tales passed down, something's there. Me, at least.
Because even if they're to think that they were 100% man-made, then that means that it's full-on crop circles. The way that people say crop circles are man-made, or the monolith. Take the monolith. Right. They're saying it's man-made. Then that means that some dude is flying around the world, going to different crops, waiting till everyone's asleep, putting those pads on his feet and walking around. And he must have had someone floating in the air or a drone or something to make them completely perfect. They got to be looking down at him saying, no, man, come back this way a little bit. Yeah, that's perfect. There's no way that they could be on the ground making these and also look from the sky to make sure that they are correct. Or else you would wander off. They'd be all crooked. They're perfectly symmetrical. That's the same thing with this. If to say that a regular dude did this, he would have had to have been over 100 years old to have released the first one and the most recent one. It's over the course of 100 years, and he would have had to have carved them. For some reason, he woke up and said, I got all that crystal carving machine. They got they're going to make a skull. And he started doing it and then took the skulls all over the world and planted them in certain places where they would probably never be found if not by accident. I mean, why would he take one and take it and stick it in a Mayan cave, and take another one and hide it in the Navajo desert? I mean, why would
I'm trying to think of what else we've seen. I know the Indiana Jones we spoke about. I know in Search of. Do you remember other pop culture like movies or plots to shows that had to do with the Crystal Skull? Do you remember any of them?
Not off the top of my head.
That's where I saw it. Another one too. Yes. Okay, I'm looking here. I saw one in the British Museum in Mexico. There's one in the museum that I went to in Mexico as well. The Anthropological Museum in Mexico. But they had one there as well.
You've been to Mexico?
I lived in Mexico for a couple of years. So it's when I was
really?
Yes.
I took about 11 steps into Mexico when I was in the service in California. I went across the border and I stepped in just to say I did it, and I turned around and went back.
Well, coming back's the easy thing, apparently.
Coming back was pretty easy for me.
Right. but here we go. I'm looking at this. There are quite a bit of the Librarian had an episode of that, right? Exactly too.
Librarian used to be a good show.
That was. So there are quite a few things in popular culture with the crystal skulls, and I'm sure that all of them have to do with like aliens or most of these things are supernatural, right? Oh, that's right. The Crystal Skull. Remember? Do you remember? I used to play Zork. You play those? Remember those games or no?
Zork. That sounds familiar.
Those were the Infocom games. The only text. It was like in the 80s. I played those all the time. Only text-based games. Describing. You are here. Do you see this and whatever? The Crystal Skull was in that one as well. There was a Crystal Skull in there. But yeah, it has been a lot of things in popular culture. And again, all these things have to do with either aliens or supernatural. So getting back to it, you're already saying, and like I kind of think, so if you do think something to it, you do think that we're aliens or supernatural, which would you lean more toward? Or man-made?
I'd lean more towards the alien. Especially, knowing the stuff out there like the Nazca lines where they've drawn all of this stuff, but you couldn't see the drawings unless you were like 1,000 feet in the air. There's just too much stuff that makes me lean towards that. Now, I believe in the supernatural, but I think that this is extraterrestrial.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Many people saying it's fake. They've been around for a long time. I mean, we're talking, found in 1800s. And yeah, there were people that we have people like P.T. Barnum, which later, that, used to do things like, come see, the mermaid thing and the mermaid. I don't think it was as big a thing. Yeah, I guess with all the sideshows too, and people going around the medicine men from town to town. But I don't think it was as much to do with aliens stuff then, or talking about things to try to fool the public on a grand scale. I don't know, but maybe I'm just being naive with that too. But I do think there's something to it. I think that been in popular culture for so long, and like we said, you have native tribes talking about it as well. Certain things like this, that to me is gives it credence. And again, like we say every episode, somehow it always comes back to Native Americans. That's not necessarily Americans.
We got to do a thing about them because they are connected to everything.
Everything. So, but this one's more like the Mexican tribes, the Mayans, and things. And I've been always fascinated with Mayans. Always. I mean, that you pick one tribe from history that that's the one that's fascinated me the most. I named my daughter after them because Maya is she loves hearing that, but that is true. I've always been fascinated by the Mayans. So there is something there. If I know that something is associated with them and they think it's like this supernatural element, I'm leaning to that one on this one. So I'm with you. I think there's something there to it. I don't know if I want to see maybe all of them 13 get together to see what happens. If we open up a portal or something, or if it sends a signal, hey, now it's time to invade. I don't know if we want that. So, but I think it's interesting enough, and like I said, I find this fascinating. I found this fascinating since I was a kid. I've been hearing about the crystal skulls. Like you and I probably watched that same In Search of episode at the same time back then.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. This one and the it in my mind it connects to too many things, but it just I just can't understand why someone would create these, take all the time it would take, and then travel the world and hide them. So it's I think it's beyond that.
They have said that there's no record of them being found in an archaeological site ever. So they just the
one from but like I said, they were exaggerators of the truth. But the Anne Hodgman supposedly been found, but a lot of them were brought to the Smithsonian. People just had them, and they just kind of walked them into the Smithsonian. But
this reminds me of all the things like that last. Going back to Indiana Jones, that last thing of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they just wheel the Ark into that warehouse. Who knows what's sitting underneath the Smithsonian or the British Museum?
Yeah.
Who knows what artifacts are there that no one's brought out for generations and upon generations that are just sitting there that could be something that people forgot about.
That's how they found Titanoboa. It was a series of bones that was in a Smithsonian that they hadn't cataloged, and a guy was bored and decided he was going to go in there and check out some stuff, and he found it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's giant turtle bones," and he's like, "That's not a turtle bone." And he found a bunch of bones and found out it was part of a vertebrae for a gigantic snake that had never been documented. I remember looking at that and thinking, man, just like you're thinking, I was like, if they just found that and it was just sitting there for years, who else is in those boxes?
That's exactly it. Who knows? Who knows what's there that they're just not going to? It's amazing to me how careless or something we are with some things.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us know what you guys think. If you believe in these, you've heard stories about that we haven't covered, and we're very interested. So anyway, this has been Nightmares Before Bed. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Troy Cannon, and please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for watching Nightmares Before Bed. And now, it's time to shut the lights, close your eyes, and go to sleep. If you can.